Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this evening's board meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody in the public here and hope it. Oh, we need that before we start. Very good observation. Borrowed the better term. Yes, I don't think. Yeah. We'll be right with you.
Why don't you guys all look this way?
What's this for?
I don't know, I'm gonna post. First board, okay, we gotta wait for Chris real quick.
I thought you were gonna hold up a picture of the flag.
I could have, oh, what a great idea. Okay, let me just get one quick board picture, okay. Maria, could you turn around real quick? Yeah, I just wanna get, cause I've been wanting. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, take two. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and thank you, Trustee Miller. And let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, trustees. With that, I'm going to, we'll go to our Vice President, and she will review our closed session and activities.
The board met in closed session this evening. I have 4 items that we discussed. The first one is a conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Coalition to Save San Marin versus Nevada Unified School District, Marin County Superior Court, case number SCIV 1702295. This was an update to the board. It was information only. The second item is subdivision D1, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Rick Tucker versus Shelley Cunningham, Donald Scioli, NPAT Inc., Novato Unified School District, City of Novato, civil case number 1401954. Again, an update to the board, so information only. And the third item, Government Code 54957 and 54957.6, conference with our labor negotiator, Chris Koska, Assistant Superintendent HR, Employees Organization, Novato Federation of Teachers, otherwise known as NFT. That was information only. And an update to the board. The last item, Government Code 54957 and 54957.6, conference with labor negotiator Chris Koska, Assistant Superintendent Human Resources, Employees Organization, California School Employees Association, otherwise known as CSEA. That again was an update to the board and information only.
Thank you, Trustee Butler. Couple of housekeeping things. Well, let's do approval of the agenda. Would anyone be interested in approving tonight's agenda?
Mr. President, I have a consent item that I would like to pull as part of approving the agenda. Or
okay.
I'm out of practice,
yeah,
so if I jump the gun on it, that's...
Here, let me make my announcements briefly, if I could. So I'd like to reorder discussion 13A, discussion action item A and B. So B would become the first item, and then we'll go into what is now item A is the second item. And so there's that. And then, yes, and why don't you go next?
Well, I'll move to amend the...
Let's go back to where I started. Let's approve tonight's agenda first of all.
Based on your...
based on those 2 changes.
So I'll move to rearrange the agenda
so Trustee
for your direction.
Nell in a second. Trustee Scott, all in favor? That passes 7-0. All right, now Trustee Nell.
If we've reached the consent agenda, I'd like to pull item I, which is the bond audit contract.
Okay, item I. Anyone else? Okay, let me go back. I want to, so that's noted. I'm going to pull a couple also. But I do want to do one more housekeeping chore. On June 13th, Trustee Scott was not able to be here at the meeting, and we didn't vote on excusing her, so I'd like to do that tonight if we could. So if I could get a first on that. Trustee Mack, Trustee Aguila, all in favor? Thank you. So that passes 6 in favor and 1 abstained. I guess, yeah. 6 in favor, 1 abstained. Yeah, okay, thank you very much for that, and sorry for the oversight at that meeting. I do have one public comment card for consent, and Renee Portillo, would you like to come up and speak?
We didn't approve the consent.
Oh.
Yo, Tom.
It's a fun evening. I have to get in. Excuse me 1 sec. Yeah, I'm a little out of practice tonight. Okay, so after, so could we have approval of the consent agenda? Would it? Oh, I did. Sorry, I'm just saying. And I have a couple. Here's what I'd like. Sorry for the confusion here we're having. If I could, bear with me 1 second. I would like to pull item F and item B. B like boy. He pulled I. Okay. So now we've pulled those, and could I get someone to approve the consent?
Point of order. Did you say that the public comment was in reference to the consent agenda?
Yes, it was. So
Should we
we're back
take?
on track. Sorry. So you should come now. If you could come up to the microphone. Sorry for the confusion.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's not agenda.
okay. Sorry. Boy, we're having a hard night. Sorry about that. Very confusing.
It's on 11.
So yeah, you're coming up in a few minutes. Yeah. All right. So let's.
So I will move to accept the consent agenda, excluding items B, F, and I, now that we know that the public comment is not pertaining to any consent agenda.
That is correct. So first and a second, Trustee Aguila, all in favor? That passes 7-0. All right. Stand by just a second. Now we're on to item 10, announcements, board and superintendent, and Trustee Miller, we'll start with you. Nothing. That's it? Nothing? Okay. Trustee Nell.
I just want to say that I trust y'all had a good summer so far, and appreciate staff getting us started, and I look forward to another good school year. That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Aguilar?
Yeah. I think we all attended the 4th of July parade, and I think that was an excellent opportunity for the board to show our gratitude and our appreciation to the community and for their support, and that was also a lot of fun. And also the Blue Ribbon Coalition met, and for the Blue Ribbon Coalition has done a lot of wonderful things, but and we will continue to do so. However, we're taking a little break in order to gather data, reassess, and so we can serve the community better, and until further notice. That's it.
Good, thank you. Trustee Matt?
Nothing to report, just looking forward to a year of a whole lot of changes that we approved last year. So between MBI, late to start, technology, it's going to be interesting.
Good point. Trustee Scott?
Yeah, no comment.
No. Trustee Bellard?
No.
And I have no comments. Superintendent Hogaboom?
Thank you, President Cooper. I have a couple comments. So we ran a couple great programs, I think, over the summer that we will bring reports back on to you. The first is Camp University that we ran in conjunction with the Y. Jennifer Dudley was the principal again this year, and I think that was a very successful program. We implemented and tried out some of the new Kevin Clark EL strategies with the new teachers, so that was great. And I think we did some pre and post assessments. So Mr. Chaidez will be reporting on the success of that. And the other was we had about 60 newcomer students again over at Hill. Some middle school students and some high school students. We had 3 different levels. The middle school was in one, and then high school was kind of newcomers, and then some that were returning. And they did a great job and made a lot of progress there, again, using the Kevin Clark strategy. So Melissa Diaz did a great job running that, and the coach from Kevin Clark was there, and she was coaching the teachers every day. So she'll bring a report back on that. We had a first school meeting yesterday and today that was down at the Marin County Office of Education. Trustee Mack talked about one of the new initiatives, and so we're going to be expanding the Marin Community Foundation grant to all of our elementary schools this year, certain aspects of it. So we got $60,000 approximately from the Marin Community Foundation to release Bonnie Barron 3 days a week on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So she and Jennifer Dudley will be splitting the principalship at Lou Sutton, and that will allow us to make sure that the data analysis, the community of caring, and a lot of those key things, the conscientious learner and the cultural competence pieces will be going out to all of our elementary schools. And so the 4 principals and their teams probably had about 25 people there all together for the last couple of days. So that was exciting. We had an administrative retreat last Friday, went over our goals, went over Novato culture, went over a lot of things that were relevant to the administrators. BioMarin had their grand opening in Novato yesterday. So they have, how many people was it? Tom Cooper was there.
60.
No, I thought they had I think it was like 700 people that are there at BioMarin. And so, yeah. So they have their new gene therapy. They talked a lot about the BioMarin partnership that they have with us in San Marin. They had a student there who talked about the internship that she had with them. And they're just a great partner. They were celebrating 20 years in our community, but just a great partner to have with us here. And they're obviously a big partner with our Biotech Academy at San Marin. And then we've also hired a bunch of new administrators, and 2 of them, I think, are here tonight. So Karen Valentine in the back. Karen, you want to stand up? So Karen is our new coordinator of student services, and Karen, like a few other people in the audience, comes from Napa. She did a lot of work with adult ed there and has kind of a mental health background, but we are thrilled to have her come over and take over for Lynn Erickson, and had a meeting today with a parent. And so welcome, Karen, and it's nice to have you.
Welcome.
Secondly, looking sharp out there, I'd like to introduce Gabe Lund. So Gabe looks familiar, stand up. So Gabe used to be at San Jose Middle School for a long time as a science teacher, and then he did, I think, I told him he's not supposed to look better than superintendent, but I guess that means I need to clean up my own act. So he was a point 2 administrator there 2 years ago, and then he went over to Whitehall. I have a problem with that. White Hill to be the assistant principal last year, and Megan Truitt left to work at a school in Berkeley closer to her home. So we did interviews, and Gabe rose to the top. So congratulations on coming back to Novato, and he's got 2 young children and lives here in Novato. So we are thrilled to have you back, and looking forward to working with you.
Good to have you back.
There you are. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Hogeman. All right. So let's do a formal announcement. Renee Portillo, and welcome.
Thank you.
Sorry for all that confusion.
That's okay. I don't mind. Hi, I'm Renee Portillo. I have a son, Ethan, who's a junior at Novato High School, who proudly plays varsity football for Novato. Jody Kuhn is my varsity mom counterpart, and she's here in support of why I'm going to read, so I can be clear, because I'm a much better writer than I am a speaker. We were so happy with the great turnout, enthusiasm yesterday. Practice, the boys are clearly rising to the occasion. I'm sure all you obviously know what's occurring. I see the root of the problem. We see the root of the problem now. Novato High School Football Organization is lacking funding and support of the administration. It has become apparent that the district is not paying coaches enough to make it worth their while to commit and do some of the heavy lifting that is required to be a competitive team within the greater community of high school football teams in the area. Therefore, I would like to suggest a long overdue injection of funding and a commitment to full investment from you, the board, both financial and in a spirit, keeping with long-term success we envision for our high school football and other teams. We owe this much to our children. Second, I'd like to encourage the board to engage more deeply in continually auditing the administration as it relates to school athletics in order to establish better checks and balances and to ensure that our sports programs avoid the threat of obsolescence. In short, we demand transparency here. Recently, we have been reminded of the rippling impact that high school football has, as seen in the recent camaraderie and rallying cries of students, parents, and the community at large. Even if you are not personally interested in sports, please, at the very least, commit to doing what's needed to avoid another embarrassing, media, frenzied, and justified public outrage. We need to be assured that our football team and any other sports team in our school do not fall through the cracks and at the hands of a small minority of purely self-interested. You have a responsibility to do your best to provide students healthy, competitive, extracurricular programs commiserated with the standard enjoyed by public schools within our community and those other communities close by. We're asking for funding, consistency, communication, and commitment from the board and the school officials. This is just the beginning. We're going to be back at every meeting asking over and over again. I have a 16-year-old and an 11-year-old. 11-year-old who wants to play football in the future. Can't promise him that right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for coming. And we look forward to seeing you next time. All right, back to, there we go. Very efficient alarm there. All right, our first staff report, item 12, certificated staffing update, and Chris Koska. Hi.
I'm not used to being at the beginning. I feel like I'm more like a closer. Thank you for having me tonight. Just wanted to give you a very quick update on staffing for 17-18 school year. We'll be coming back and giving you more details on the 22nd on both staffing and enrollment once we can really see what enrollment looks like after students have shown up. So briefly, we've hired 31 teachers for the 17-18 school year, including, well, actually after today we can say that's 32 teachers for the 17-18 school year, including 6 math teachers, 4 science teachers, 7 special education teachers, a speech language pathologist, and then teachers in many other credential areas. Also hired 5 new administrators. You were introduced to a few of them, but also Kelly Johnson as our new special education director, Mark Sims, high school principal at San Marin, Christy Stalker, assistant principal at Novato High School for supporting MSA and Novato High School. You just met Gabe Lund, and you just met Karen Valentine. So it's been a busy year. It couldn't happen without a very strong human resources team, and I appreciate you for the supports that you've provided to our department over the last few years. One big accomplishment was the hiring of almost all of our classroom teachers prior to this point in time, which is still a week and a half before the start of school year. The intent to separate stipend served us very well. It was a very cost-effective strategy to get teachers in the classrooms early, for us to be able to go out and recruit teachers early, helped Yancey with budget development. So thank you to NFT who supported us with that. Thank you to the board of trustees for supporting that idea. We still have some vacancies. It does look like we were able to interview 2 school nurses yesterday, so we're pending the outcome of those interviews, but things look positive. So that's a big help. At the time that I wrote this report, we were short 3 psychologists, it looks like we're going to be hiring one intern school psychologist that'll help with some of that burden. Won't take one full FTE off the board, but maybe a half to 2/3. So we're still a couple of psychologists short. We're looking at having to contract out for those services, unfortunately. We are still looking for a special day class teacher at Linwood Elementary School. We're still hoping that we'll be able to interview before the start of the school year. That position's been a little jinxed. We've offered it to a couple people over the last few months, and it just hasn't worked out for one reason or another. So really, that's about it. We have one program specialist in special education. That is Kanani Cherry is currently in, but she's going to be leaving that position to take a position in Solano County. So we're going to be interviewing for that position very soon. More than likely, it'll be an internal hire. Not sure which of our great special ed team members that'll be, but more than likely that'll be internal, which will create some sort of domino effect, of course. Then that'll have another vacancy. So as I stated, more information to come on both staffing and enrollment on August 22nd. But for now, I'm open to any questions or comments.
Thanks, Chris. Trustees, questions, comments? Trustee Nell?
I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit more about how and who we would contract out to, in particular the psychologists.
Yeah, so we've worked with a couple different agencies in the past, and what we do is we hire a fully credentialed school psychologist that is not our district's employee, but is an employee of the agency that we're hiring. So it ends up costing us a little bit more than if it's our own employee. It's really a last-ditch strategy that we employ when we can't find enough people to fill the position. This is something we've done in special ed in the past, almost every year. I think this past year we had one. Prior to that, we've had more than one. Again, but we get a high-quality school psychologist that's fully credentialed to do the work.
Trustee Miller?
Thank you, Mr. President. So if I heard this right, in terms of math teachers and science teachers, we're fully staffed?
Yes, sir. And
Hooray.
Spanish teachers, too.
And Spanish teachers, hooray.
Yeah.
That's significant.
Yep.
That's different than many years past, and congratulations on the work in that area.
Thank you. A lot of hard work by those departments and our team and the administrators at those schools. So yeah, good teamwork.
It's change from the past. Thanks.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Chris. And I want to make sure you tell your staff, pass along gratitude from the board too.
I will.
A lot of hard work.
I will. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, trustees, we're back to item 13, our first discussion action item. So approval to add San Jose Middle School air conditioning project. And Yancey will be presenting this.
All right, thank you. I also have Mike Woolard, our Executive Director of Facilities, here for questions, and Todd Lee with Greystone West, the district's construction management group, to ask here for any questions. On April 3rd, the Bond Implementation Committee finalized a list of recommendations for the approval recommendations for the superintendent to bring to the board. On May 2nd, those recommendations were brought to the board. All of the projects on the list, with the exception of the air conditioning project at San Jose Middle School, were approved. And the board had some additional information that was requested regarding that project. On June 6th, staff provided additional information to the board related to their requests. And so we are now here asking for a board to approve that project in the list of first set of projects for the bond. One item I did want to note was that one of the requests was to look for options to reduce or offset costs related to this project. And as we've started to move forward with that project, we've determined two potential ways The first, which we noted in June, is to use Proposition 39 funds in where there is already air conditioning in the San Jose that we will be replacing. If you were replacing units, you can use those funds, and we've actually already included those in the plan that the board has approved. So that will reduce or offset some of those costs. The other item is there is a needed fire alarm replacement project that is included in the facilities master plan around San Jose Middle School, and there is a potential that we could do those projects together. I want to be clear that I am not asking for the boards to approve that project at this point. We are still moving forward, but there's a good possibility that we could include that, and so that could reduce the overall costs by putting those two projects together when we do that. With that, I wanted to open it up to questions from the board.
All right, thank you very much. Trustee Scott.
Thank you for all the work you've done on this, and I appreciate you taking all the time, especially with me, going over all of this. I'm just trying to make sure that as we move forward with these projects that we are thinking in terms of cost reductions. Can you tell me what the potential savings are with the Prop 39 funds with the AC?
It's likely in the $25,000 range for costs.
At just the one site, or?
Yes, sorry, at just the one site. We will be, overall, I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. But they are significant. One item just to note on that is the state the legislature just approved the extension of Proposition 39, which was not actually expected in that. There was a thought that the state would roll those funds in and move forward. So that actually will allow us on future projects
That's what I was just gonna...
to potentially augment the project funds with those Proposition 39 funds moving forward now that there has been an extension of that.
Great. Thank you. I just want to say thank you again, Yancy, to you and all your staff members, and to the facilities director for walking me through a lot of this. I appreciate your time. Also to Justin, I reached out to Justin and we spoke also on this project. My primary concerns for this were just to make sure that we're moving through this in a smart way. When I saw in the bond pool that we were going to be doing the roof as well, I didn't want to spend money just putting a Band-Aid on something and then being right back at it a few years later, ripping something up and doing it again. It just didn't make sense to me. So I'm glad that we cleared that up. I'm happy with it at this point. I'm not happy with the cost, but it's just not something I think we're able to get away from. I think the cost is incredibly expensive, just incredibly expensive. I'm disappointed with the costs mostly. So thank you, Yancy.
Trustee Scott, thank you. Anyone else? Comments, questions? Trustee No.
So I, too, originally had a lot of concerns about this particular project at this particular site. And I, too, want to thank staff for coming forward and doing some due diligence and helping me understand what all the issues are. Though I think from my perspective, we're more between a rock and a hard place on this one. And though I recognize that what may have actually caused this heat problem to exist came from decision making probably 10 years ago on our first bond and some of the original modernization that took place there. There's very little we can do about that at this point, except for use it as an example for doing due diligence this time, so that at any one time that anyone on this particular board or the construction facilities committees has a concern about the quality and the long-term effects of the construction that we're about to embark on, I hope the rest of us will perk up and pay attention and try to make sure that what we are going to do is going to last longer, operate at a lower expense, and not force us to do something way beyond.
Okay, so we're all, us and the public all have the same understanding of if we approve it tonight, how it will go.
So the proposed schedule would be construction during the summer of 2018. So next summer would be when we could move forward, if we approve it today and move forward.
So that would be, this August, as school opens, we're gonna get what we got. But by next August, the construction will be complete and there'll be some relief from the temperature starting the following year if we approve this measure tonight.
And yes, this is a large enough project that it will be a DSA project, which it causes a significant amount of that time. So we're going to be moving forward right away, but the DSA process and the fact that we have to be out of school for this construction to be done. The fall of 2018 was always the earliest that this project could have been completed with bond funds.
Okay, so that means this August and in this school year in July, and then the kids are out next summer, and if everything goes well, that's when the construction would occur, and there'll be relief in the classroom starting next August.
Yes, that's when we're moving forward.
Just to be clear, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Aguilar, and then back to Trustee Nell.
To see the purpose of this study is also hopefully with the 11,000 we can find, or they can come back to us and give us ways that we could save also in the future, correct?
Through the process, yes, we will be determining ways to potentially save funding and save costs and moving forward. Yeah. So yes, by approving the project, we will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Nell, back to you.
Thank you. So in the spirit of avocation for the public process and transparency, when the timeline was brought up, it was said in there, but I want to make it absolutely clear that the due diligence that has taken place on this particular item for this particular site has not suspended or delayed the original schedule on this. So the original starting time of next summer has always been the schedule. So I didn't want anyone to be discouraged about delaying projects if they feel strongly enough about their value. I think the public process and in the spirit of transparency, we should all be active in making sure that everyone here does the best job they can. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Nell. Trustee Butler.
I'm going to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve the superintendent and staff recommendation of the air conditioning project at San Jose Middle School and included in the first round of board-approved Measure G bond fund projects.
All right, great. Trustee Butler and Trustee Mack is a second. All in favor? That passes 7 in favor and none opposed. Thank you very much. That's awesome. Thank you to everybody involved. And I just want to say thank you publicly to the staff and parents and children at San Jose Middle School for being patient through this process. And then we'll move on to item B, which is to approve contract with Total School Solutions. And Yancey, once again, welcome.
All right, thank you. So going into the 2017-18 district fiscal year, the staff brought forward and the board approved a budget that included a $2.6 million deficit. Included with this was the recommendation of a budget advisory committee to be formed in the fall. The budget advisory committee, the board will receive a report on that on the 22nd for some information. But in that process, the most important revenue component of the district's budget relates to enrollment. As you know, we've moved into declining enrollment, in the neighborhood of about 1% a year. That, along with the slowing of the pace of the increases for school districts in the LCFF calculation, as well as the significant increases to STRS and PERS rates, are definitely taking a squeeze on the budget. As we move towards that budget advisory committee, it is staff's recommendation that we update the demographic study and enrollment study for the district. The last one was done about 2 years ago, was 2 years from when we would have completed this project. And this is going to be potentially a key document for that budget advisory committee to move forward with. I do want to make it clear, usually we do these studies about every 4 to 5 years as we move forward. But given the fact that we've moved into a declining enrollment situation and we have a budget advisory committee and the likelihood of $1 million or more in potential budget solutions that we're going to come up with, we really need to lock down those numbers moving forward. So with that, I will open it up to questions.
All right, thank you. Trustees, Trustee Miller, you're first.
So this is $11,700 item, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
So, we have done this regularly. Clearly, if you don't know what your revenue's like, you can't budget anything about the district. So I'll move approval of the superintendent's recommendation on this item.
Okay, any other comments from trustees? Trustee No?
I'm prepared to second, but I do have a comment, but
we have a second. Any other comments?
so my
I want to make a comment too.
Yeah.
So when you're done, go ahead.
I just wanted to speak in favor of moving up this particular study from our usual practice. I think that economic and cultural conditions justify it, so I appreciate you bringing it forward. I support it.
And my comments are essentially, if I look back at the last study, and you just said it, we got it last year, and that was a 5-year study as well. And my concern is that we're spending money on something that essentially we just received and we just paid for. And I'm a little concerned, and you could tell me if I'm totally off base here, but has the data, have you been able to, and I'm sure you have, look at the past report, and what are we looking to garner that from the new one that's worth $11,000 to us? Can we refine it, or is it really necessary?
So there's 2 levels that you can look at when you do a report like this. You can do a full demographic study, which we noted at 11,700. You also can look at a very close look at your kindergarten enrollment. So for the most part, your cohort, what they call each grade level movement, is similar as you move forward. And the kindergarten is always that kind of unknown for a unified school district or an elementary school district. So that is the largest unknown each and every year. And that's what we rely on most in the demographic study. And you can do a study limited to a kindergarten review, so a 5-year projection on your kinder and TK. TK has become a much more important number because, and very difficult actually to project, because the TK number is, first of all, it's only 1/4 of the year that includes, and the number of students who are eligible versus the number of students who actually enroll in TK varies pretty wildly, because it still is, even though it's been around, 5 more years, it's still a relatively new program. And so we did get a cost estimate for both the demographic study, the full demographic study, which included the look at those cohorts, the look at whether we lose or gain students going from the 5th to 6th grade, going from the 8th to 9th grade. That full study was the 11,700. A kindergarten projection and TK projection, only to update that, was 6,300 was the report on that.
And would that be able, if we were able to go with the latter, would that be able to give you sufficient information, what you're looking for the Budget Advisory Committee this year?
It would definitely help. It would definitely, I mean, staff's recommendation is for the full study, but the kindergarten enrollment is the primary piece that we use.
Okay.
I definitely would recommend doing at least the
one or the other.
At least the kinder study. If
any comments from any other trustees? Trustee Miller and then Trustee Butler.
Yeah, simply, I mean, if you're running a restaurant, what you do at the end of every day is the owner stays and counts the cash drawer. Revenue is king. You got to know where you stand in terms of where the money's coming from to make any other thing make any sense. It's important to me that that number be as accurate as we possibly can, and I would, for the $6 grand delta, I'd go ahead and get the best numbers we possibly can. They're not going to be perfect, but we're going to make some big decisions about position control and retention and other issues, and I would like to make sure that we've done it with as much data-driven process as we possibly can.
Okay.
So that's my 2 cents.
Trustee Butler, thank you. Trustee Butler.
Thank you, President Cooper, for your comments, because I'm a little in agreement with you, or agree with what your comments were. And I've talked to this with Yancey about, I've been hesitant about this. We just approved a district-wide enrollment projection study in March of last year, and now here we go again, asking for approval of another one. I feel the data is sufficient in what we've received, and I would be more inclined to do the TK and Kinder study. Just take what you have right here, update those numbers, and we should be, I think we would be beneficial to us just doing that, and I don't think a whole study needs to be done. I think, we're watching our costs. This is minimal, but I don't see them. I think Total School Solutions is going to go back in here and not make much change to this for $11,700. It's cash in their pocket. And if we're not happy with what we received in last year, then we shouldn't be using Total School Solutions. So I'm more inclined to just do the TK and Kinder.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Butler. Trustee Scott?
Yancey, do you have figures on, were you given figures for the smaller projection piece?
Yeah, 6,300 was the
thank you.
Was the figure on the Kinder study.
Trustee Nell and then Trustee Mack. You want to go first, Trustee Mack? Okay.
Tend to agree lowering the scope would be a good idea because it seems to be repetitive. Almost seems to me like doing this every other year might make more sense because the data is pretty solid and doesn't radically move a lot. But at the beginning point, kindergarten is where things happen. So I would agree with that. I do have one, looking at this data, and you've heard me say this in the past, but this kind of bears it out to me. And tell me if I'm wrong. But I'm looking at the data K-12 graph in the report, and it shows a downward trend over the whole thing. Going down from, 7,800 to 7,400 over however many years, 25 years. Okay, downward trend. Go to the next chart. K graph, just K enrollment. It's going up throughout. So what's going on, folks? Where's all our kids going? I mean, we were getting them in K, but we're losing them later. And maybe that's what we need to study. Just a thought. I'll put it up back to you. Make sure I'm right, first off.
No, I think we always need to look at retention, especially between, like I said, the biggest jumps are between that 5th and 6th grade year and the 8th and 9th grade year that we really need to focus. One thing, though, it is important to note is that there is a bubble of grades going through the district right now, and we've stabilized at a lower kindergarten number, although that is going up a little bit. But we are going to be losing that quote-unquote bubble that is going through our middle school and high school right now. And so when we lose those kids and we hit that new normal, even if that new normal is a little bit increased, we are going to lose kids.
Yeah, I just, once again, I'm only pointing at the trend lines. over 25 years, which are, pretty robust. And we have a downward trend, significant downward trend in overall enrollment over 25 years. And when you look at the trend line for K enrollment over the same 25 years, it's upward. So that doesn't add up. And that's something I think we need to focus on. But I'll stop.
Good thoughts. Trustee Nell?
Well, I certainly share Trustees Mack concern over retention, and I don't know how much could be done into a demographic study like this one, but I sure would like to hear if they could isolate those numbers at a higher level as part of the project. Here's what I'm hearing. I think Trustee Cooper and Trustee Butler, I'm sure all of us make an excellent point that we want to be very diligent in our spending, and I think I'm right up there with the rest of you when it comes to watching the nickels and dimes. But my caution is a little bit more along the lines of, it's just a figure of speech, but penny wise but pound foolish. And that's, in today's fast-moving culture of short-term job positions, and there's a lot of fluctuation in the population, and economic conditions are predicted to go one way or the other, up or down, as you know. But I think it's kind of like, from my perspective, is we really need to be exacting in this particular area. So if we were to do a 60 for 6,300, the value of going up to 11.7 on that is we get so much more, not just another grade level. We get the whole district, but it also gives us real-time analysis of budget planning. And my concern is if we just do the kindergarten version, that we're basically going to be extrapolating on our own. Here's the information from a kindergarten. It's growing. We know that. Great. But similar to what Trustee Mack was talking about, what's this retention issue? What's causing that? And I want to be certain of the actual demographics of the people, age and family size that are living here in the community as we go forward and build our very, very tight budgets, because there's not a lot of new money coming. There's a lot of demands on the money that we do get. Some of it is beyond our control. So I think it would be wiser and a good and sound investment to make the full study as we prepare for future budgeting. And I'm more than happy to settle for whatever the board decides. But I think I would be worried about putting our staff in a position of having to extrapolate on their own with very limited information for more than half the cost of a full report.
Thank you, Trustee Nell. Trustee Miller, back to you.
Simply, I favor the full study. I'll support whatever we do. I think we need to study. We have to settle it tonight. We have to move forward. But I guess my key point is, you can't on one hand say, let's only study kindergarten, and then at this board table ask questions about where the population went on all the different grade levels that went through, and ask it of staff, but then not fund a study that answers the question. So either we're going to be simple and go for a simple answer, which is kindergarten only, or we're going to try to answer some broader questions. And I think those are important broad questions, and I would argue that we ought to, at this point, get the best data we can. And I appreciate it's only been a year. It seems like, I just traded in my brand new car. What's the deal here? But with those kind of questions being asked, apparently the study we have doesn't answer them. So we need something to look at them. So I will go along with the board. I think we just got to move tonight. So whatever we decide is fine with me, but I would choose the full study.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Trustee Mack?
Is there a way we can change the scope of the study a little bit, tweak it to address what I noted, kind of focus on K, but to really, instead of just telling us the overall trends, which are pretty recent, we know that already. Let's go a layer lower and understand the whys of the disconnect between the K enrollment going up. I mean, literally, it's going up every single year in 25 years. And at the end of the chart, that's the peak in 2025. Meanwhile, total is going down. I'm sure they could take that apart and tell us what they see and break it down at a site level, ideally, because I know this is not just across the entire uniform district. There's hot spots, and we need to understand them. So I'd ask that we scope that in to the study
So,
with the full price.
Well, you can't change the scope without asking for.
Understood, Ross, yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
That was my question, yeah.
Trustee Aguilar, and then I'd like to let the superintendent say
No,
something.
that was my question for what price? Hoping that we would be looking at a different way of doing the study, that it would be lower.
Okay. Superintendent Hogaboom.
Well, I just wanted to remind the board in response to your question, Greg, that Leslie does do a follow-up with our students who leave the district and their parents every year. She does it right about now. So that gives us some insights into why are people leaving. It's not going to answer all the questions that you have, but I think it helps us with, what are the causes or issues that people have about why a fifth grader decides to leave and not go to middle school or high school or whatever. So we do those follow-ups. So the other question, I guess, Yancey, is it possible to get, if we get approval for the full, whatever, 11,700, can you talk to them and see if you could, so if you approved it, the 11,700, but know that you will try to see if, knowing what we want, can they give us some discounted price or something?
I think I can work with them to have a focus in that area. There's a lot of different areas that they focus on. Obviously, they look at birth rates, they look at cohort survival rates, they look at progression between sites, they look at individual schools, and so we can probably shift them a little bit, and I'll tell them that the board was hesitant, and so I'll move forward. I think we can get, I'm not saying, the kind of report that really looks into a full detailed view of how we're losing kids is not in this kind of scope, but the data that can help us and, and the look at the trend data and to be more clear, I absolutely think they can do, and we can ask them to focus on that. And then we can go back and either choose to do a larger review or an internal review with that additional data and with that additional focus. Yep.
All right, and the only comment I would have, if there are any other comments? Nope. Is that when you speak with them, you might ask them, maybe they could rename it from a 5-year study to a 2-year study.
Yes, I could do that.
All right, Trustee Aguilar?
So I don't know, there was a motion, but with those changes that
Trustee Miller?
Oh, then I second with those changes.
Trustee Miller made the initial motion, and Trustee Aguilar second. All in favor? And opposed? That passes 6 in favor, 1 opposed. Yeah, go.
Absolutely.
Sharpen your pencil, or get them to sharpen theirs.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if I could ask to be excused.
Oh, of course.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so on to item C, grand jury report, Marin Retirement's healthcare benefits. The money still isn't there. Yancey Hawkins, once again.
All right. Thank you very much. In May of 2017, the Marin Grand Jury released a report, Marin's Retirement Healthcare Benefits. The money still isn't there. This relates to what is known as Other Post-Employment Benefits, or OPEB, as they like to call it, with very fun names. But this basically is healthcare benefits and other benefits that school districts and other municipalities offer their employees after retirement. In our school district, this is actually the board and the district has been pretty good at minimizing the impact and the liability of this. The benefit is up to, so the maximum is up to $200 a month until age 65. And also the retirees are in a separate experience pool. And so they are not lumped in with our active employees when they price our our benefits for our active employees, which actually becomes very important as I go through this document right here. Currently, the liability for the district is approximately $1.5 million, which is a little less than 2% of our annual budget. So overall, not nearly as large as our main liability out there, which is our PERS and STIRS liability. As I've noted a lot in the last year, and my predecessor sure talked about a lot before, the main thing impacting the future of the school district from a financial standpoint is those increases in PERS and STIRS costs and how we fund those. So with that, the grand jury had several findings which were more factual in nature, so I won't go over those. They had 9 recommendations, and I'm going to go through each one of those. The requirement of this grand jury report, I'll try to be quick, was that the district had to note on each recommendation whether they had implemented it, whether they were going to implement it and give a timeline, whether they were going to need further discussion, or they were not going to implement. And if so, for the last 3, you needed to note why. So the first, recommendation is that each agency should adopt a formal written policy for contributions for its OPEB plan. We have a policy, and that it notes that we do formally every year a plan, which currently is a pay-as-you-go plan. That is not formally in the document, so we are going to note that we are implementing that. We will note that. The second is that your practice should conform with your written OPEB policy, and while our current practice is what our policy is, because it's not noted as pay-as-you-go, that will be implemented as soon as the board changes the board policy. The third is kind of the largest recommendation. It's why it has the most information that I've noted in the document, but it's that each agency's OPEB contribution policy and practice should support a projection under GASB 75 that its OPEB plan assets will be sufficient to make all projected OPEB benefit payments. So it's funny because in the document they said that it needs to be more clear and transparent and easy to understand, and this is pretty much one of the more but to be clear and transparent about what this means is that it's recommending that the district contribute into a irrevocable trust the entire amount of any liability as of right now. And as we are, board's policy is currently pay-as-you-go, the district will not be implementing that at this time. And I think it's important to note the reasons why, the several reasons, but most of them revolve around the need for the district to conserve its reserve flexibility over the next several years, including the PERS and STIRS increase, which is the largest thing that the district needs to be dealing with, the need to maintain flexibility, uncertainty around ongoing implementation of the Affordable Care Act and other health and welfare changes, and the impact of declining enrollment and reductions or slowing pace at the state level. But really, that number one and the number one note of the PERS and STIRS is the real reason around that. Number 4, each agency that uses a special reserve fund for post-employment benefits should transition to a trust. That's not applicable for our district. Number 5, each term of service, elected or appointed officials of each agencies should take a public agency financial class. I think it's important that all of the board members of ours have completed or are in the process of completing the Masters in Governance. And the board members annually receive training from CSBA and the Marin County Office of Ed and other providers. I think this board is very financially savvy and has done a lot to keep up on that. Recommendation number 6, each agency should make its audits and GASB evaluations more readily understandable by the general public. We've implemented that. We do pretty good explanations, and we have the auditors and actuarials when needed there to give updates. Recommendation number 7 is that each agency should ensure that all of its public financial presentations are more readily understandable and in scheduled during hours convenient for the public. This mostly relates to agencies that have their board meetings at 10 in the morning, and basically nobody can really get to them. So we have obviously our board meetings at a time when people in the public can come. Recommendation 8 is each agency should have the following downloadable and text searchable documents readily accessible on their websites. We've always had that on our website. Those are currently on there, so we've implemented that. And the next recommendation is before the next round of bargaining, each agency should prioritize cost containment strategies to be used in terms of OPEB, and the recommendation is implemented. We are always looking at stabilizing or reducing our OPEB liability moving forward. With that, I know that was a lot of information. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Yancy. Trustee Miller, you first.
Thank you. I think this is an important area for the community in Novato to understand how the Novato Unified School District operates. Beginning boards before me, the issue of unfunded retirement liability was an issue and had been an issue, if not annually, every other year. There were school districts like Richmond School District that went bankrupt, basically committing retirement benefits that they could never have paid. And this district, beginning a long time ago, long before even I was here, reviewed the policy and specifically limited the amount of money per retiree to a specific amount per month that was reviewed, limited the number of months up to age 65, I think is the current rule, so that there's a specific amount of money that this district covers that the PERS programs did not cover, so employees who retired early could transition, and then specifically put the benefit pool for retirees into a separate pool from working well, active teachers, so that excessively large costs were not shared back and make our employee medical costs unaffordable because of some large event that happened in some person as they neared end of life. And those were reviewed regularly. So the strategy to make sure that that program, which is now your liability measure, is $106 million, $1.6 million total, yep, which is like in any 1 year is 2%, but we don't have to pay it in 1 year. We're going to pay it over 10, so it's like a 0.2% issue. That has been specifically by actions of this board intentionally kept under control. The part that hasn't been kept under control is the retirement benefits that are paid to, that PERS or STRS pays to employees. And clearly the state's readjusting at the whole state level that we're impacting our ability to give raises to our teachers. As pay increases come to this district, they're going directly to refund that liability in that insurance plan. So I think it's absolutely right for us to worry about making sure that we can comply with the state requirements we have no control over. They're coming at us like it or not. But I think we have a sound, solid, decades-long record of making sure we've kept this unfunded liability under control, and I would not want to change from putting it into a trust from where we are now. I think we're doing just fine. I think we have a proven record that's 40 years long in its history that shows we've managed the fiscally part of this business adequately, and I would like to revise your response and aggressively point to them the things we have done that shows where we have taken positive actions. They're not in terms of setting up their solution. I don't want their solution. We've got a solution that we crafted and have implemented for decades, and I would like to cite it and say, here's how we've solved the problem. So I'm, as you can tell, a little worked up at the fact that somebody's accusing us of fiscal malfeasance, when in my view, that's just exactly the opposite of what's happened, and they just didn't do the work the grand jury should have and studied the issue. I think they are just throwing rocks. And I don't think it's fair.
All right, thank you, Trustee Miller. So are you, just to comment on that, are you suggesting that they make those changes and then they'll have to come back to us? Just getting your opinion.
Yeah, I would strengthen our response, but I'm a little bit heated and I might be talked off of this cliff a little bit.
Good.
But
Thank you. Any other?
Just two things to note on that. Absolutely, I think this is an issue, a much larger issue from a lot of municipalities and school districts in this county, and I think we've kind of been brought into it. I absolutely agree with Trustee Millerick that what we've done has maximized the amount of dollars for today's students and staff by not allowing this to balloon over the last 25 years. The only thing that I would note is, and I think we can do it within this, is that this is due to a timing of when the board meetings have been. This is due to the grand jury by the 15th, and it has to be board approved. But I'm happy to note, especially in recommendation number 3, that we won't change our note, but we will strengthen the background of it, noting a lot of the items that Trustee Millerick, if the board is comfortable with that.
we have to approve this, then I don't approve it, but I would appreciate.
I think you can approve the response, and then I can add just clarity to the response, because we're not changing one of their 4 things that they're asking us to approve.
Trustee Nell, did you have a comment or?
Yeah.
Where he's done, yeah, I think, and then you're
I just
next.
have a comment.
So I want to start by saying I really appreciate Trustee Millerick's defense of the Nevada Unified School District. I often find myself sitting here fending off criticism from the state and other outside accreditation agencies and so forth when they miss the mark in their constructive criticism of us, and I share yours on the particular points and how it relates to our specific retiree health care benefits. But I didn't want to go too far. I suppose I would, respect and increase the strength in language that said that in the case of Nevada Unified on this particular issue, we're good, have been, and that's probably because we're a disciplined outfit and we do pay attention to our dollars. But I didn't want to discredit the report in its entirety. I mean, we have a serious problem on a statewide, municipal level and school level, with our pension and health care retirees. We don't have enough money. And at some point, the rubber's going to meet the road, and we are not going to be able to make this pay-go payment, for instance.
I agree.
So I just wanted, and I'd even defend them a little bit because, one of their findings are that some schools, have increased their obligation, and they're really not as hard on the schools as they are in some of these municipalities. But I think the point of the report is we are digging a deeper and deeper hole in the state of California when it comes to this regard. And if I was I'm a participant in the way that I participate in its funding, but if I was going to be a planned recipient of this, I'd be really nervous that the money was in fact going to be there in 5 to 10 years. So, I would say that based on the answers that they were looking for, almost all that has to do is transparency and information at this stage, because I think it's a complicated issue and most people really don't get it. But that's what I heard. I heard you referring to information. Is it understandable? Is it available? Is it online? Do the trustees or the electeds know what they're talking about? Do you take it into consideration during negotiations? Well, yes, more now than ever. So I think that the response is adequate, and I appreciate the grand jury and the work that it's done. And I'm prepared to move on the acceptance of the response. And if someone would want to be, and I would accept an amended strengthening the language in our UAA obligation, history, et cetera. So. But nonetheless, I think we need to talk about this particular issue all the time. It's approaching soon to be 22% of our total budget, and we just quite frankly aren't going to be able to afford to pay people to work here anymore when all the money is going to go straight through to our retirees.
Thank you, Trustee Nell. Trustee Scott.
Well, I just wanted to commend the grand jury. It was an interesting read. And I was surprised by many of the other districts and where they were. It was shocking for some of it. I knew about a few of them, but I was surprised at some of the others. I appreciate that they're going out there and notifying people, and I think we're doing a good job, and I appreciate your response, and I agree with Trustee Nell. I think if I was a recipient of that, I'd be worried too. I mean, this is going to be a big problem, and it's just snowballing, and we need to take a hard look. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Trustee Aguilar.
Yeah, to me, there's a big difference between being transparent and being informing, doing a better job at informing. So, so I just want to make sure, you know, we're being transparent in that sense. I don't agree with that, but I do agree with wanting to go back and strengthening the answers and the replies. And if there's not a second, I would second that.
I think we have a second. Trustee Nell, were you a second?
You made the motion.
Oh, first, so let me go through this again. Are you done, Trustee Aguilar? Because, okay. Any other comments? No? Okay. So we have a first.
So I will make the motion to accept the response with some strengthening in the specifics to the Nevada Unified School District's
okay.
history.
Thank you. And a second, Trustee Millerick. And all in favor? That passes 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Tell them what a good job we're doing. I mean, your finance department has been on top of yours and your predecessor.
Yep.
And their predecessor.
Yep.
You had some good comments. You had some great comments, though. Clearly. All right. Thank you, Yancy.
Thank you.
For all of the above. All right, so we're on to item D, approve the declaration of need for fully qualified educators to the 2017-18 school year, and Chris Koska
Hi,
is presenting.
Thank you again for having me. This is really a bit of a technicality. You approved the declaration of need for fully qualified educators in the spring. We submitted that to the state, and they reminded me that we approved it on the consent agenda, so they reminded me that it needs to be a discussion action item. So I'm bringing this to you again in public session. Essentially what this item is about is it allows us the opportunity to hire teachers who are not fully credentialed, so intern teachers in classifications where we're unable to hire fully credentialed teachers. We always have to make sure we ask for a little bit more, a larger number of teachers than we really believe we're going to need, because let's say hypothetically we have 4 math teachers that we have to hire as interns, and we told the state we only wanted to hire 2. We would have to go back, do another one of these forms, resubmit it. So we give ourselves a little cushion. So again, you've approved this once. I would appreciate you approving it again here in public session.
All right, thank you, Mr. Koska. Trustee Nell, comments, questions?
Yeah, I'm going to approve the resolution, and I appreciate you bringing it forward so it's not on a consent agenda item, but I know we already approved the local assignment notification on our agenda tonight, but I see that in this as symptoms of the problem that we're having hiring qualified personnel to work at the Nevada Unified School District. And I know there's no one silver bullet to this problem, but it's I think it's related to affordable housing, cost of living. I think just what we were talking about, the amount of money that we're spending on retiree benefits that Wall Street can't seem to manage well, digging us deeper and deeper. It's just this. I just wanted to point out this is another symptom of money would be better spent in recruiting and hiring qualified personnel to take these positions, so we wouldn't be finding ourselves in a position to have to locally reassign teachers to subject matter they may not necessarily have a major or a minor in, for instance, or the exclusion thing that we're currently passing. So I'm moving ahead based on what we have to do, but I certainly think that I'd like to be part of an effort to do more at the state level.
All right, thank you. Superintendent, do you have a response to that, or? No. Okay. Trustee Scott and then Trustee Miller.
So this expires June 30th, 2018. Are we going to be renewing, I mean, if things stay the way they have been, I guess this is going to be something we'll be renewing every year?
This is typically something we bring in the spring.
Okay. Okay, I was just thinking as far as policy, whether or not we should change it? No?
I don't believe that would be the
No.
best course of action. I'm open to suggestion.
Okay. It's just, if we're doing this every single year.
Yeah, but if they want, I want them to work hard to find the right people. If they need
Oh,
assistance,
well.
they can come and ask.
We've been doing this every single year for very long.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering,
This is a great point.
I don't know, I mean, it's
Yeah.
just that,
For a bigger reason.
Let me,
yeah.
if I could talk about sort of the nature of teacher hiring. This is a cyclical problem. Teachers, the role of the teacher in the workforce ebbs and flows with the economy. So when the economy is good, you get to the end of a good economic cycle, very often what happens is teaching profession is seen as a stable profession. School districts have been consistently hiring. It becomes a more, there's more optimism around the position. Part of our issue, we have a couple issues in the teacher workforce. One is that we have a lot of teachers of retirement age, and that's not going to change for the next few years. The other issue is that if you think back to the Great Recession, we're 4 or 5 years out of that. So when we were in the Great Recession, teaching became a less desirable profession to go into. So when people started college, they didn't see teaching as a viable option. Everybody was getting pink slipped. They were doing the STRS retirement changes. So now you have your classic members and your new members. You know, so the teaching profession's been beat up. So you have rapidly expanding retirements. You have a dwindling pool of candidates. It's going to take a while for people to say, I want to go back into teaching. And that's why one of the reasons we have a teaching shortage. It's not the first time we've had a teaching shortage. In 1992, they were making some very desperate hiring decisions. They even hired this one intern teacher, similar to this guy named Chris Koska down in Fontana. They were really hard up. And, you know, it's these things happen. Some of these folks become our really strong educators. The beauty of some of these processes around internships, it allows people to come into the profession without doing the student teaching in a lot of cases. And for people who are second career people, it's hard for them to change the workforce and take a year off from being paid. So we're going to get there. We're doing okay. This is a statewide problem. I know I probably went off tangent a little bit.
No, that's fine. I appreciate the explanation, because that's what I was thinking in terms of, you know, that qualified professional that has that unique aspect to come in and teach, that might be something we could pull
we
from
really
on a regular
try to
basis.
support our second career folks. I think they bring a perspective to the classroom that folks like me right out of college just didn't have.
I would agree. I would agree. Okay.
And same with military. We really focus on, and again, every once in a while we make a mistake. But for the most part, I think we really have been served well by our folks in the military.
Yeah, you know, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. Trustee now.
All right, well, that's good, because I appreciate the economics lesson. I don't know if that was a minor of yours or not, but you basically just sort of cited economic cycles, demographics, retirement,
I've been hanging out with Yancey a lot.
You sort of left off. You sort of left out the realities of the increases in the cost of living specific to our area.
True. That is true.
But you did say cite the positive in the sense that internships have changed a little bit, so that availability is there. But there's still some frustration with the second career option that, that could be fixed at the state level if the powers that were in control of certification, who shall go nameless right now, but let's just assume they're a powerful political body, would loosen up a little bit. There's some really talented people who are retiring or that could do this work. I'm certain of it. So I appreciate the brighter explanation going forward. I am concerned about this issue, but I'm glad that you had an opportunity to explain that we're focused on it, and that was my goal. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustee No. Any other comments, questions? I have a first, and I'd like to get a second.
I'll
Trustee
second.
Scott, all in favor? That passes 6 in favor and 1 absent. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, on to our last action item tonight, item E, Board Policy 7325, the AR's Administrative Regulation and Exhibit for the San Marin High School Lights and Public Address System. This is our third and final reading. Superintendent Hogan.
Thank you, President Cooper. So this is the board policy and administrative regs related to San Marin High School lights, and this is the third time we brought this back. I don't believe we made any changes this time around, did we?
I think it was just the lacrosse game saying it's usually.
Okay.
And by, to make it consistent with.
No, thank you. That's right. So we wanted to be consistent, and generally over the course of our 3 community meetings that we had, listening to the neighbors, it usually had to do with trying to get the lights off a little earlier. Can we done with practices by 8? Can we done with this by 7:30? So that was generally the tenor of it. So as it says here, we went in there to have, and so the changes were to make it consistent with all of it, whether it's soccer, lacrosse, football, what have you. So it was really getting practice times to end at 7:30, non-football games, soccer and lacrosse to end by 8. Language to include that the lights would be turned off as soon as possible after the completion of any practice or game, restrictions on holiday use, and improvements to the security plan. The other thing we did was included, as you might recall, the Gary Gates Memorial Softball Field, which also uses lights in a public address system because they weren't included in it, as well as San Marin's baseball field because they have a public address system as well. So some of the ARs that you'll see in there were applied to not only the football field and soccer fields, but to the baseball field and the softball fields as well. So this is our final draft for your consideration tonight.
Thank you. Trustees, Trustee No.
I have a couple of questions, so I just want to, and concerns, get some clarification. And I'm looking at a draft that's dated 6/21/17, so I don't know if there's been any. It's draft 7325. Page 2 of 2 on the A&Rs in regards, I'll go easy. It's the microphone check shall commence, microphone check shall commence prior to 9:15 a.m. I think we got to be specific there. So I'll start with the easy one. So that's a little simple thing. Maybe it's been corrected already. It's my comment as to the copy I'm looking at. I do have, Mr. President, so I have a couple, should I just kind of go through them? So I have this general concern with the timing in the specificity of ending games. And I'm concerned that we're not going to be able to fulfill the obligation the way these things are written unless I can get a better understanding. And when I refer to facilities on page 1 of 1, Board Policy, San Marin High School Lights, Public Address Facilities, I want to make sure the last sentence says, in addition, we will strive to ensure that during the week, Monday through Thursday, all practices will be complete by 7:30 p.m. and all games will be completed by 8 p.m. So I guess the key word is strive there. But I'm just wondering, why don't, we have similar language on the inside where we say, we're going to end the games as soon as we can, but if there are circumstances beyond our control, whether they be injury or other mechanical failure or whatever it possibly could be, delay in referee starting or something, I think it's got to be one or the other when we talk about games. And we do have it written that way for football, where we say basically, if it's beyond our control, the game will end when the game ends. But then we get on page 1 of facilities, we're specific about a time. And then when you get into lacrosse, and I did hear Ms. Benjamin talk something about a change on the lacrosse games, but on lacrosse, we talk about games will usually be completed by 8 p.m. Why would we say that when we should be simply saying what we say in football, which is when we will end the game as soon as we can? So, and I think it's similar type of thing on the softball as well. So, and I make this comment because I really don't think we should be saying we're going to be completed by 8 p.m. with kind of like usually or strive to kind of language. Let's just have a sentence there that says the games will be over when they're over. So is that too hard? I have a few other things after we get through the language on ending games.
Okay.
So can I respond to that?
Yeah, and then Trustee Miller, you're next.
So I think the balance with the neighbors was trying to, we want the lights to be off as soon as we can after the game's over with, but the neighbors wanted to know what that time was. And so that's the balance in here, is the neighbors would say, well, strive to, well, what does that mean? Or you'll try to. So it's a balance between, trying to put a time in there that, the game's usually going to be over by 8, or if it's a football game by 9. But I think, but it's a caveat that says, maybe there's some injury, it's going to delay it or whatever. So that's why you see the balance between trying to give some parameters around it, but also trying to put some leeway in there to know that, well, if it's not over by 9, that's, we're going to be done as soon as we can afterward. So I hear what you're saying, Derek, and we actually went back and forth on that a couple times between neighbors saying like, well, strive to ensure that's not going to do anything. It needs to be over by a certain time, and then balancing that with the fact that sometimes things happen during a game that you can't control. So that's why you see that it's a little fuzzy between those two responses.
Trustee Miller.
Okay, so
just a sec, Trustee Miller.
Oh.
You want to finish up?
Yeah, so the only one comment.
Do you want to let him finish?
Whatever you would like,
and then Trustee Miller.
Well, if we're discussing game ending, that's what I want to discuss.
Okay.
I had some issues that are not related to game ending. So is that
okay? All right. So Trustee Miller.
So
thank you.
So for all the games that are being played in the stadium area, I believe they're played against the clock. I think lacrosse and football and other events are played against the clock. But baseball isn't played against the clock. And a baseball game can go into extra innings, can go long, but we don't have lights on the baseball field. So I'm curious to know what the constraint is. What promises are we making to either stop the PA system or end the baseball game? Or Jim, has anybody thought that through? Because it really is a much more open-ended timeline on a baseball game than any other of the field games that we've been talking about. And I think it's a little off the issue here, so I don't want to spend a bunch of time on it, but I'd like to have somebody figure that out and talk to us about it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Comments, questions, concerns? No? All right. So third and final reading, or do you want to start up
I have
again?
a couple. Just these. That was my game ending, and I, at a minimum, Mr. Hogelman, if we could just get it more consistent. When I read it, it seems like every sport is kind of it's written in a little bit different way, and I'm just looking to write them all the same way. I guess then would be easier to explain or even defend if we had to. I did have a question about music. And I believe there's a sentence in here that says that the band can't play. Band instruments, including the use of drums and other instruments, are not allowed at athletic events. Are you talking about fans bringing band instruments and drums? Or are we talking about our band or live performances by students?
I think it's meant to be our band.
Mm-hmm. Well,
then it needs to just specifically say that. Is that your suggestion?
I think it's a bad idea to limit co-curricular activities at an event like this, and music is is an educational program. So I don't understand that. I thought it was going to be about keeping fans from bringing their trumpet or their drums. This sounds like we're not going to allow students to perform.
Oh, yeah, the EIR says no bands. So.
All right.
So
Ship
there you
sailed.
are. We got.
All right, thank you.
We have to abide by that.
Thank you. One more question.
Yeah, of course.
I'm concerned about the neighborhood after a night game, and I think, you know, one of the more understandable concerns is the litter. And it looks like we're sort of preparing ourselves to be alerted to trash in the neighborhood, but it just really isn't clear that, are we going to go pick that trash up, and and the reason that we're waiting for the next morning, is that because we're waiting for certificated, classified staff to help out in that area? And then is this something that that's cleared or we worked out through job descriptions in our bargaining unit?
Superintendent Hogaboom, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly clear, but with the idea, I think was what we wanted the students to help take responsibility for that. So we're not anticipating adding a classified custodian and paying them to come in and do it. And we wanted to give ourselves time because we would like to maybe have some ASB students kind of go around and see if there's any trash and pick it up, but knowing that those games are done late, that might not happen. So this just gives us the opportunity to maybe do that no later than the following morning. So we've had meetings with the school administration. We had students as part of those meetings. And basically this is saying that the school is accepting responsibility for the grounds, and we're not intending to add that to anybody's job description. We're really saying that the students and the associated student body needs to take responsibility for that with the San Marin staff.
I like that. It just isn't clearly written here as an administrative rule or regulation that the administrative staff at the facility with the lights is going to formulate or specify that there's some student committee or subcommittee that's going to take care of this issue. And I'd like to see it addressed, but of course, it's my
Well,
comment.
if I'm not mistaken in here, we also did say that there's a group of committee people from the neighbors that will work with the, I'm not sure where it is in here exactly, but that we're going to meet with the neighbors on a regular basis to see how things are going. So Leslie, I'm not sure if you can help me with where that is, but I know we talked about having a group of neighbors again meet with the school on a regular basis to kind of see how things are going. So I think we purposely, Derek, didn't really put something super specific in there about litter, except that the school, you know, again, we're going to go look at it in the following morning.
There's the evaluation of the safety plan that we're gonna, the Novato police officer, North Bay Security Group rep inside of will come for a week after each home game with the neighbors.
To discuss issues that may have arisen during the event. So presumably if the trash isn't getting picked up, then the neighbors are going to bring that up as, I would assume, a concern that we'll be able to address.
I get that. I'm just going to say I would prefer something a little more proactive as opposed to dealing with complaints, but that we basically take responsibility for what's out there and we take a look around. And I don't know, I'll leave it at that. I mean, I'm not going to vote against for that, but here's what I'll say. I'll be working towards, I mean, this trustee is going to be working towards success of these programs, and I don't want something like litter on the front lawn of somebody's yard, you know, holding up in a program as important as this. So I just wish we were more proactive in going out and making sure we clean up.
But I would just say that is our intent.
All right, good points, Trustee Nell. Trustee Scott?
Suggestion around the litter issue. We do have in place at our high schools for each child to participate and do 10 hours every year of volunteer work. So why couldn't we develop a program around this to have the students, if there is litter out there, form a team and maybe get an hour or two of volunteer time cleaning that up, whether it's on the field or off. Just a suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
Good one.
I-
Yeah, of course.
Just in regards to trustee Nell under litter, does San Marin staff and students, is that where that throws you off a little bit under litter, where it looks like we're taking a classified.
Yeah, I asked that question because if you want something done, you probably gotta pay
It
him
leaves
to
it
do
open
it.
for us to, ask a custodian to go around and pick up trash, maybe.
I was trying to be specific. I was looking for a specific function of an employee to make sure
Samarin
this gets done.
administration and students
Yeah,
will work.
It describes,
So maybe we change it to administration and not staff. So we're not looking to,
yeah, I'll take that. That's more
Substitute
focused.
Administration for staff, is that what you're suggesting?
Yes.
That's a good one,
That's
yeah.
more focused. I like that. Okay.
Okay, thank you all. Trustee Miller?
yeah, good questions.
Yeah.
Comments.
So however we do this, simply, the net of this, we had problems at Novato High where there was trash in the neighborhoods, and we had an administration move in and address that issue with multiple channels. The principal helped, the students helped, the janitors helped. It's clear, it's my intention that this problem gets worked and resolved for the neighbors and the community, so it doesn't end up as a public problem. So whatever we need to do, when we need to do it, if there's an issue, my intention is to step forward and make sure it gets resolved, whatever that is. And, I'm not sure the details now, but this is not gonna fester as a problem. It's gonna get fixed if it comes up, in my view.
Thank you, Trustee Miller. Yes, Trustee Butler.
Just to if we move this forward tonight, this goes into effect immediately. So we have to make sure we have a clear rollout to all sites, high schools, that they understand the policy is in force and we need to abide by this, and athletic directors and whoever coaches and things need to, starting this academic year, so.
Good point. All right. Any other comments? No? So I'd be interested in a motion to approve this. Trustee Aguila is the first. A second, possibly. Trustee Butler, all in favor? That passes 6 in favor, 1 absent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Hogaboom. Now we're to consent, and I did pull 2 items. The first item I pulled was item B, and this question, I guess, would go to Chris Koska. And thank you, Leslie. And just quick one, we had talked, and this is with respect to the psychologists
Yes.
that recently resigned. And there are 3 of them here. And my question is, we talked, and it's so hard to get these people to fill these roles. We had talked about exit interviews, and I wondered if we could, or if you did an exit interview with those 3 individuals, or if you plan to, or what.
We've done an exit survey with
Okay.
each of those 3 individuals. I've not sat down with them.
Okay.
I will be bringing you a report of all the exit survey results. We've done a much better job of rolling that out this year.
Perfect.
Better participation. Of course, as I will always remind you, we can't make somebody do something like that on the way out. But
Agreed.
and if we do, we get bad data. So, but we
Agreed.
do have much better data this year.
Yeah.
Ellen's done a great job of riding herd on that. So
Great. I just wanted to
Yeah.
bring it up. I thought
Good.
that's very timely, I think. All right, with that, I would move on item B of the consent agenda. A second, Trustee Miller, all in favor? That passes 6 in favor and 1 absent.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then the second one, item F, I just wanted to recognize the Peter E. Haas Junior Family Fund for supporting this district once again. And there's 2 items actually on this consent agenda, but I do want to express our gratitude to them and their unwavering support to us. And with that, I would move on item F.
I
Second,
will-
Trustee Miller. Oh, Trustee Nell, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to thank you for bringing this item forward and adding to the acknowledgement of the contributions they've been making to our district over the years.
Thank you. So we have a first and Trustee Miller second, and all in favor? That passes 6 in favor and 1 absent. And then Trustee Nell, you pulled item L, I believe?
I
Looks like an L. We're done.
All right, let's go home. No, I thought that you know, it's not that big of a deal, but I would prefer to see the contract for this level of work and, you know, and what it's related to, come forward with a staff report, and I'm sure that's going to be the plan when the actual audits are completed. So I just wanted to have some public acknowledgement of us moving forward on our bond audit programs, and this has changed a lot over the years. And those of you who maybe were here for the first time around, I think we were one of the first school districts under the new proposition that allowed us to run this particular type of school bond under the conditions that we provide this type of audit report. And it was hard to find someone that knew how to do it. So this is fairly impressive. And my recollection is it's about the same price as what we paid 10 years ago. So we're getting a lot more for the money. And then the last thing, I guess, that they have proposed fees for extended years. I noticed, you know, the hours go up, but that probably just has to do with the fact that they're going to be busier. There's going to be a lot more work when we get into the 18-19 year and so forth.
Yeah, really the audit for 2016-17 that will be performed this fall is really only about a 5-month audit and has pretty limited expenditures because we really were in the planning phase at that point. Once we get into the 17-18 school year and projects are really starting in earnest, that's when a lot of, especially the performance audit work, is going to be done at looking at making sure that we are being efficient and we are following all the, you know, all the state and local rules. So,
one more question on the one of the things that appear to me to be a true benefit is the quality control measures is what I'm going to call them that are proposed in here. So I just want to, have you discussed this with the facilities staff and construction management and how to leverage the information that they're going to be providing so that we can, you know, just, I just wasn't sure how the scope has been, of these audits has been integrated with the actual work as we go forward.
Absolutely. I think it's important to note that while they are our auditors, they are also partners in the sense of giving us best practices, really focusing us, and we really can use them as a partner when we're moving through to make sure that we are using those best practices. So when the Citizens Oversight Committee met in July, the auditors were there. We wanted them, the Citizens Oversight Committee, to meet the auditors prior to us bringing the contract here. They have met with staff as well as construction management staff, and I have worked with the people in charge of this audit before on a bond audit in one of my previous districts, and they did a wonderful job, and they were a great treasure trove of information to make sure that we were doing everything right.
Well, thank you for bringing your experience with them forward. My last question is about the cost of the study and where the funds are going to come from, as this is a required audit as a condition of Prop 39. The funding in the sense of like trying to do our due diligence and watch our nickels and dimes, the funding for this does not come out of our general budget or our operational funds, but in fact comes out of the construction funds that are sold by the bonds. Is that correct?
That is correct. This is a requirement of the Proposition 39 bond in which we went out for, and therefore it's our recommendation, and I think best practice, that those costs come out of the bond itself as an administrative cost.
And I support that as well. So, all right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Good. Thank you, Trustee Nell. Any other questions, comments? Nope. And Trustee Nell, are you prepared to move on that?
That's a good, I move to accept consent agenda item I.
Okay, just second. Trustee Scott, all in favor? That passes 6 in favor, 1 opposed. And thank you very much. That concludes our meeting tonight. And we'll see you here on August 22nd at 7 p.m. Meeting is adjourned.